Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have my February wrap up. So in February I read 7 books, which is one less than I read in January, but I'm not I'm not upset about it or anything. 7 books is still great. Obviously I did hope to read more because I will always want to read more than I do actually read, but I'm still happy with what I managed to get through. My page total this month came to 2,255, which is 800 less than January, but I did read a lot less in January, and while I did finish at least one tome, I also read quite a few short books for Contemporary-thon. As for media and things like that, I read 1 graphic novel, 1 non-fiction. The rest were all fiction. And of the fiction books, 1 was adult and the rest were YA. So overall a pretty good mix of books. I'm pretty happy with that. I've noticed that both in January and February I've read at least 1 adult book and also at least 1 non-fiction book, which non-fiction was never a name, that's just how it happened. So I don't see that continuing through the rest of the year, but I would like to see myself reading more adult books going forward. As I just mentioned, I did take part in Contemporary-thon and I did do a week-long vlog with a wrap-up at the end, but I will also recap those books here because obviously those of you who didn't participate in Contemporary-thon aren't necessarily going to watch my 20-minute long vlog. So even though the quantity was less than January, the quality was a lot more. I would also say that I still haven't found any really standout books for 2018 yet. I do have a few 5 stars here, but they're not really huge standout books for me, and I will explain why in a second. So as for ratings, we have 3 3-star books, 1 4-star book and 3 5-star books. But of the 5-star books, 1 was a graphic novel, 1 was non-fiction and 1 was a reread. So nothing new has stood out to me yet in 2018, and I'm still searching for some really good books. So let's just get into it. First book that I finished in February was Allegiant by Veronica Roth, and I gave this 3 stars. Speaking on the series as a whole, I really like the plot, but the execution isn't all there. The first book was really good and I gave that 4 stars. The second book and this book I have the same feeling towards, and that is that they are too long. The second book, all that mattered was the ending. In this one, the whole middle section of the book seems to really overcomplicate the plot for the last book in a series, because it sort of takes you out of the original world that you're in the first 2 books and puts you in a new setting with new systems, new politics, and I feel like it was a lot to try and be done in the last book of a series, and that maybe the series shouldn't have concluded this way. There should have been a 4th book to make this feel like a more natural progression in the series. So yeah, it was too long and the plot got really overcomplicated for the finale of a series. I've decided that I'm not going to read 4, which I believe is 4 short stories from 4's perspective. Yeah, unless any of you tell me that it's actually worth reading, I'm not going to bother. I don't feel like I need to gain anything more from the Divergent series. And also I've moved on now, so I've been taken out of that world and I'm not sure whether I'd want to get back into it. Then in February was my reread of Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. I gave this 5 stars. Interestingly, before I reread this, this was the only Sarah J Maas book that I'd given 4 stars. I have done a full book diary for this, so I'll link that in the cards, but please bear in mind that it does contain spoilers. So if you haven't read Throne of Glass, then don't go and watch that video. I'm not going to say too much because I did do the book diary, but I did enjoy this a lot more second time around, obviously, because I gave it 5 stars instead of 4. And I realised that the reason I didn't like it as much the first time around is because this is all world building. It all sets up the rest of the series. From the perspective of being somebody who has read all of the other books in the series, I understand this book a lot better. I understand its purpose within the series, and I understand all of the places and things and little plot hints that are referenced in the book, so I enjoyed it a lot more the second time around, and it was a 5-star read for me. Then we have the 4 books that I managed to read for Contemporary-thon, so I'm really proud of my reading that week. As with Throne of Glass, I have a whole vlog thing on this, which I'll put up above. I will recap these for those of you that either aren't interested in watching a full vlog on a readathon you didn't take part in, or just haven't got around to watching that whole thing. So the first thing I finished was Archie Volume 1 by Mark Waid, Fiona Staples, Annie Wu and Veronica Fish, I think. I did give this 5 stars. I want to say that it's actually nothing at all like the TV show. Right at the end of the volume you start to get a thriller aspect coming in, but as I haven't read any further volumes, I don't know whether that's a theme, which then makes it more like the TV show. But I did really like this. I really appreciated the art, and I think it really managed to capture in the artwork sort of teen angst and like drama and all of that, and I really did enjoy it. I'm not sure if I will be continuing with this series, but I did really love it, so if I do continue I will probably buy the physical copies, because I got this one as an an ebook rental from my library if I can afford them, because I feel like graphic novels are expensive for the amount of time that I spend reading them. Whereas with a normal book, I'll pay £8 and spend like 4 days reading it. With a graphic novel, I spend like £12 and spend an hour reading it. But I might put them on like my wish list for my birthday and Christmas and stuff and see what happens. So I would like to continue with this series, and I would recommend it for fans of contemporary graphic novels and also Riverdale, even though it's actually nothing like the show. Then I read Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertelli. I gave this one 4 stars. I started off really disliking this book. I found the writing style difficult to get into at first because it wasn't written as I expected it to. I pretty much expected it to be just like sort of John Green style writing, and it was a very casual, almost dialogue like writing style, which I wasn't expecting, so it threw me a little bit. And also I really didn't like Simon because Simon is obsessed with sex in like a very realistic way that teenage boys stereotypically are all obsessed with sex, but it didn't feel natural in the way that I guess it doesn't for teenage boys when they just randomly think about sex. But it was just dropped in randomly too frequently, didn't feel natural, and that really annoyed me. So it took me a long time to get into this. I think it was about 100 pages before I really started loving it. But by the end, I thought it was great. I loved all of the characters. I ended up liking Simon after disliking him to start off with. I also really identify with Leah in the way that she hates everybody apart from 3 people. Like, that is me. I'm so antisocial, you have no idea. And yeah, I would recommend this. I'm not sure if I'm going to read The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertelli yet. I haven't decided, but I am excited to pick up Leah on the Offbeat. Not because I'm generally feeling a need for a continuation to this, but just because I feel like I identify with Leah, and so I would like to read that. Then we have my non-fiction book of the month, and that was This Modern Love by Will Derbyshire, and I gave this one 5 stars. I absolutely loved this. This is a collection of love letters and poetry and photos that symbolise love, and it came about because the sort of curator, Will Derbyshire, I believe he has a YouTube channel, though I haven't checked it out yet, and he asked the world 6 questions, and they were: what would you say to your ex without judgment? Write a thank you note to your partner. Describe or share in a photo the big and little things that make you happy. What single word sums up your love life, your partner, or someone you like? What single image sums up your love life, your partner, or someone you like? What would you say to a crush? Write a letter to them to express it. And how has technology affected your relationship, either positively or negatively? Describe your experience. And this book is a collection of the answers to those questions. So it's split into 3 sections, and the first section is the crush stage, the second section is the relationship stage, and the third section is breakups. And I thought this had a lot of emotion in it. I appreciated it a lot. I loved all of the sentiments in this book. This is the book I was reading on Valentine's Day, and I would really recommend this for fans of poetry and probably contemporary fiction as well. And it was just a nice, heartwarming, emotional, quick read. Then I read the Romanov Girls, which I started for Contemporary-a-thon, but I finished the last, I think I had 80 pages the day after Contemporary-a-thon ended. I gave this one 3 stars. This is the second thriller I've ever consciously read. This one is told in a present and past tense, so it is about a girl called, what is her name? Lane. And she is a Roanoke girl, and her mother dies, so she goes back to the Roanoke estate where her grandparents are, and her cousin lives there. And horrific things happen, and she runs away, and she goes to LA. And then in the present, she gets a call from her grandfather saying to come back because her cousin's gone missing. So she goes back to Roanoke and all of the horrors and the nightmares of that place to help find her cousin. I did really like this, and I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I personally like to go into thrillers blind, but this centres around the grandparents and the whole family dynamic of the Roanoke. I found this really easy to read, really quick, really gripping, and it was dark and twisted in all of the like delicious ways that thrillers are. I found some aspects of this believable because, like I said, she escaped from that place, that she was only there for one summer, so like about 2 months. Yet she comes rushing back because she desperately needs to know what happened to her cousin, even though this place was so horrific and she hated it. So my thoughts were, why would you go back? Like, why would you care so much about somebody you only knew for one summer a decade ago to go and relive all these horrible memories? So I found that unbelievable. I would also like to say about this that it's not driven by the mystery aspect of what happened to her cousin Allegra. That sort of takes a back seat, and it's just sort of a parallel between what happened 10 years ago and what's happening now, and the mystery sort of takes a back seat in the whole plot line. But I would recommend this to people who are new to thrillers. I feel like I'm a little bit harsher rating thrillers because obviously it all rests on the ending generally and what the plot reveal is, and if I'm dissatisfied by the plot reveal, then I tend to rate the book low. So probably I'm more of a 4-star read, but I gave this 3 stars, but I would still recommend it, and it was really good. And then the last book that I read in February was Marked by PC and Kristen Cast. And guys, this is about vampires, and this is a world where people know that vampires exist. And the main character in the first chapter, she goes to school, she gets marked by a vampire, which means that she's going to change into one. Then she has to go to a boarding school for vampires. She's obviously like different to the others and things like that. There are a lot of things that I liked about this. I gave this book 3 stars. I really like the plot. I think that it's a very unique take on vampires that I've never seen before. They don't glitter in the sun, but they're also not like the Buffy style vampires. These are just sort of like normal kids. They don't burst into flames in the sunlight. It's just uncomfortable for them. It's generally like a normal school, except they're all becoming vampires. Something I really liked about this is that there is a heavy Wiccan presence in the aspects of ritual and religion in the vampire world. I really liked the boarding school aspect of it, and I thought the plot was generally very, very good. Also, I think this was published in 2007, and it is very diverse for the time it was published. The main character is half Cherokee, which I believe is it a Native American tribe? I'm not sure about that, but that's what I think it is. She also has a gay friend and a black friend, so there's rep for that. So for the time and for a YA vampire book, I found it to be very diverse. However, it's very, very tropey. The writing is really, really bad. It's very cheesy in parts. The character development for anybody other than the main character is just zero. You have the classic trope of the bitchy girl who's like really popular and doesn't like the main character. The voices of all of her friends sort of came across the same because the character development was so little. Like, they had tiny differences in personality, but the way that they spoke to each other was very cliche, very tropey, very cheesy, and didn't feel natural. So while I liked some things about this, there were some things that I didn't like. At the minute, I am going to continue with the series and read at least 2 to 4 more books before I decide whether I'm going to DNF it. The problem that I have is that I don't feel like the plot will ever be substantial enough to last for 12 books, which is how long the series is. So I may DNF it at some point, but for the moment I am enjoying this and I will carry on. So that's everything for my February wrap up. I am currently reading Everless by Sarah Holland. I'm about 240 pages in, but I couldn't quite get it finished before the end of the month. I am really enjoying that one, and I have no idea where the plot is going, which I really, really like. People have been comparing it to Red Queen, and I do see why. There are a lot of similarities, and I am going to do a book diary on that book because I said I would be doing all of my 2018 releases. So look out for that, but it could be spoilery, so there will be a warning if it is. But that's everything, and I hope you like this video. Pop down in the comments below what your favourite book of February was. And as always, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to. Head into the down bar below, you'll find a link to my Instagram, Goodreads and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those. And also a link to my Bookish candles and body butter website, and also the Instagram for that if you'd like to check out any of that. But that's everything from me today. Bye!